So, let's talk about what happens when a place you love, a real local spot, just closes down. We're going to dive into the story of Jade King, a Chinese restaurant in New York. Its recent closing got this really emotional tribute, but you know that tribute? It only tells half of a way more complicated story.
Yeah, so when the news hit, this local food blog, The Chinese Quest, they published this ode, basically a poem for the restaurant. And the first line just hits you, right? It immediately sets the tone. This wasn't just about a restaurant closing. This was a real loss for the community, and you could feel it.
And according to this tribute, Jade King it wasn't just any restaurant. It was a total fixture, a cherished part of the town's fabric, a place people really felt was theirs for like decades.
The language they used is just so heartfelt, you know? They talked about comfort food, beyond compare, and how a community was built right inside. The writer really saw it as a home for many. I mean, that's so much more than just walls and a sign, right?
So, why did it close? Well, the ode points to a story we've all heard before, right? Rising costs and, as the writer puts it, a landlord's greed. Just a tragic and what seems like a pretty straightforward end for a place everyone loved. Okay, but was it always so beloved? Because that glowing tribute, that's not the whole story, not even close. If you dig just a little deeper into the archives of that exact same publication, a totally different picture of Jade King starts to come into focus. And here it is. This is the twist. 12 years before that beautiful, loving ode, the Chinese Quest wrote a review of the very same restaurant. And let me tell you, calling it less than flattering would be a massive understatement. This was their takeaway back in 2013. Major disappointment and a complete waste of time and energy. I mean, wow, what a stark contrast from the writer who, years later, would call that exact same spot a local treasure. So that's the big puzzle here, isn't it? How on earth can you square these two things? How can one place be both a treasure and a disappointment? What happened in those 12 years? I mean, look at this. When you see the words side by side, the contradiction is it's wild. The local treasure with food beyond compare was once called a major disappointment with a blander selection of dishes. It's just fascinating, right? So you're probably wondering, what did they even eat back in 2013? Well, the reviewer did something interesting. They intentionally ordered the most stereotypical, generic stuff on the menu. Their whole goal was to get the real, authentic experience of what a local regular would eat there. And their conclusion on the food? We got what we asked for. This line just perfectly captures the sarcastic, almost cynical tone of the whole review. They were basically saying, yep, we expected boring, uninspired neighborhood Chinese food, and boy, did they deliver. It was a total knock on the place's lack of culinary creativity. And get this, even the fortune cookies felt cynical. The fortunes were these weirdly philosophical things, and one of them even had a typo. It just all added to this vibe that the whole place was a little off. So, back to the big question. How do we solve this paradox? Well, the answer isn't about the food. Not really. It's about understanding what a restaurant can mean to a community, something that goes way beyond what's on the menu. And that brings us to this idea of a community hub. This is the key. The value of a place like this isn't measured in Michelin stars or glowing food reviews. It's measured in shared memories. It's that familiar place you go for birthdays, for random Tuesday night dinners, for family get-togethers. And you know what? There was a clue hiding in plain sight, right there in that scathing 2013 review. The writer mentions, almost as a throwaway line, that the place was packed with locals on a Wednesday night. They saw what the restaurant really was to people, they just didn't get its value. Not yet. And here's the kicker. By the time that bad review was written in 2013, Jade King had already been open for more than 45 years. Think about that. A restaurant does not survive that long just because the food is okay. It survives because it becomes essential. It becomes part of people's lives. Which brings us full circle, right back to that ode. Over those 12 years, the reviewer's entire perspective changed. What once looked like a culinary disappointment was finally seen for what it always was, a home. The memories, the comfort of knowing it was always there, the shared experiences, that became the main course. So what's the takeaway here?
The story of Jade King really shows us that a place's value can totally evolve. Over decades, a simple restaurant can get woven into the fabric of a town, becoming part of its identity. It's loved not because it's perfect, but because it's a constant.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about for our own towns and our own favorite spots. When you think about the places you love, the ones that would leave a real hole if they disappeared, what is it you're really valuing? Is it the quality of what's on the plate, or is it the memories you've made at the table?